we started relations with Tanzania during the days when it was still Tanganyika. Very strong relations even at the time. Those who remember history, we even sent a big contingent of nurses to come and help. At that time, we're not even free. It was just the organization doing so. And of course, Tanzania was our home for a long time. But also Tanzania has been very consistent in its own approach to things, which has made the party here to stay so many years in power. So to us, we could not firstly miss coming here to be with them as they celebrate their victory. And we are very happy that indeed they came back. So I think that we'll be more discussing very closely, but I don't think they would be any different because cadres from Chama Mapinduzi don't differ. They might differ in style, but generally there's policy there. There is an approach that has been followed since from the beginning. So I'm very happy that he's there. We're going to be working together. We had an opportunity to exchange some ideas today, particularly during lunchtime. We talked a little bit and very warm. He's a very warm person. I think it would be wonderful. In the process of my being in the leadership collective of the ANC, one has interacted with all the leaders at different times, of course, for different approaches as well. I'm not counting Yarere was very senior, but interacted with him from that point of view, as well as the ones who followed. And of course, Kigwade, who's just gone out, I started interacting with him more closely when he was a minister, still a minister. And then he became finally a president, and we had a lot of interaction. We grew a very close relationship between the two, and I'm sure it will be the same with the current one. We discuss a lot of issues. We learn from one another all the time. We take good practices, etc. I think the critical point with regard to South Africa, you take any country in the region here, those countries never had apartheid. For an example, if you take Tanzania, the British who were here, who were administrators, once Tanzania were free, they left. So Tanzanians grew as one nation-like in a manner in which they did, believed in what they wanted to believe, and moved in a particular way. What people don't take into account is that in South Africa, the situation was different. There was an institutionalized racism which separated people, and therefore the privileges and rights were not the same. Once we come in, unlike other countries who had to deal with their people equally, we had to deal with that gap in the first instance. If we take education for an example, the blacks were given inferior education deliberately. We've got to close that gap. So if you talk about unemployment in countries outside of South Africa, it has been growing from a particular point for the entire population. With us, a big percentage is unemployable people because they couldn't be educated because of the system. They were disadvantaged. So whenever we discuss with people, we always bear that in mind, that our situation was not exactly the same like others. There might be, in terms of development, not at the same level. But what is important is that whilst South Africa had a section of the population minority that was developed, the bulk of the people were left behind. In other words, we are dealing with a legacy which is more difficult in our case than in other places. You are also dealing with the economy. If you take Tanzania, from day one, the economy was in the hands of the Tanzanians, the black Tanzanians. No matter how they are growing, that's what it is. In South Africa, up to this day, the economy is dominated by a particular class because of the structure of the economy of South Africa. We even introduced laws to try to shorten the distance. Black empowerment is attacked every day because everybody believes, or some people believe, You have got to remain where you are. If you go to the stock exchange, for example, I've said this in public, probably about 3% of black people are there, the majority. So if you look at it, whether you look at education, there are no protests within white students or whatever. Whatever you look at, because we said apartheid must go, but in practice, you still have a lot of it. The economy is the key to show that. We are now saying we are trying to develop black industrialists because they are not there. They are not in control of major levers of the economy. So that's a problem we're dealing with. Whether you are in Zambia, whether you are in Tanzania, whether you are in Angola, they don't face that problem. And therefore, if we do the comparison, we should always bear that in mind, that they moved from a particular point. We are moving from an experience they don't have. They never had institutionalized racism. We had. They've got to learn from us what is that, what does that mean? The land issue, for an example. In South Africa, it's totally different. There was laws to take the land away from the hands of the blacks, which was the basis of economy. It never happened in Tanzania or in other places. They can't talk about the Land Act. So the situations are not the same. And therefore, what we do and what they do, much as we discuss and exchange views, but where there's a clarity that our situation is different from others. We take it from there and find ways to work together.